Hello everyone, it's Jamal Thomas. Welcome to the Progressive Soapbox. So I'm using this mic till I work out the sound issues with the other mic. Some people could hear it, some people couldn't. I could hear it just fine. But people have different setups, so it is what it is. Let me make sure the volume is what it's supposed to be, and it is. I'm going to do this story relatively fast because, like I said, I have a few other stories, and the other story took much longer than I wanted to. So, George Knapp is a reporter for Las Vegas News. He's iNews team in Las Vegas. Knapp has been paying attention and following the Tom DeLonge leaks and releases, essentially with Academy to the Stars, releasing all of this information for essentially UFO data. It has this big publication in Washington Post, New York Times, Politico, CNN, MSNBC, all of these people. You have Lou Elizondo, the person who headed up the program. That was, you could say, the expose in those pieces, essentially monitoring and they call it under the guise of threat detection, but for all intents and purposes they were monitoring UFOs. And Elizondo was the person who was head of that secret program. Now Elizondo quits his job, goes working for Tom DeLonge, and starts a media circuit where he's talking to people in the press, and he's making it very clear, yes, in my scientific experience or in my investigation into these matters, and I've been seeing these matters all throughout the United States, there's something here. Well, people have been kind of saying, okay, what else? You gave it these grainy photos. What else? What else? What else? Yeah, some people said it was a bird. Some people said it was a plane. Some people said, oh, we don't necessarily know what that is. Nobody knows what these little grainy photos are. I have made the point that the biggest draw in this wasn't necessarily the grainy images and photos. We have images all over the place. It was the pilots who themselves were in those planes looking at the object flying through the air with the media or with the recording technology, the sophisticated recording technology that's part of the Nimitz itself, the battle group. They're watching it. This is not some random guy was out on a farm and that random guy, while he was talking to a cow, sees a UFO. Military trained professionals in an airplane watching UFO do things that are blowing their minds. Now, here's the thing. George Knapp comes out and says, you guys want to see a report on this? We're going to give you a report on this. And he essentially tweets out that, as a teaser, a report is coming out analyzing the experiences of the Nimitz crew. And it's out. And the report is amazing. The report is mind-blowing. There are two reports, by the way. One report, they say, will never come up. Like, one report say they're burying that report will never come up. The second report wasn't supposed to come out, but the news team was able to get their hands on it, and essentially is exposed in the report. I'm going to give a summary of the report, and I'm going to put the report at the bottom for people to see for themselves, meaning they can read through it or whatever else, the analysis. Essentially, it's a confidential military analysis that was kind of behind the scenes that nobody thought was going to come out. The media, or not the media, the military establishment didn't want to deal with it. We don't want to deal with this report. And in not wanting to deal with this report, it kind of just got circulated and got buried. However, people got their hands on it. This report comes back up with a vengeance. One of the things that comes up in the report, and part of the reason they didn't want to deal with it, is two really mind-blowing aspects. Well, three. One, this, whatever they were engaging doesn't belong, at least in an overt way, to any of the major powers. It's not ours. It's not somebody else's. Which is why Lou Elizondo was like, when she asked, do you believe we're being visited? He says yes. Because in his mind, this doesn't belong to us, nor does it belong, or these capabilities belong to anybody else. The ship had the capacity to go invisible off of radar and from visual perception, meaning it was there, now it's no longer there. And we see it on radar, now it's no longer on radar. Meaning it could evade our systems anytime we wanted to evade our systems. And it, for all intents and purposes, made our systems look primitive and childish in comparison. You can imagine this is a mind-blowing report. The thing about the report that gets even more mind-blowing, and this makes me more curious about what's in the report that's highly confidential. What concerned me about it was the end. The end of the report has this thing of saying, by not noticing this or not paying attention to this, and by not taking this report seriously, they're endangering our national security. Meaning, whoever is making a decision in order to try to get this information out is doing so with the shoehorn of national security. Let me read the report, because there are two things with this. There are three things that are interesting with the report. And the last thing is, let's read the report first. Let's read the summary, and then we can talk about it afterwards. I-Team exclusive confidential report analyzes tic-tac-toe UFO incidents. Over a 2-week period in late 2004, an unknown 45-foot-long tic-tac-shaped object played cat and mouse with the United States Navy off the coast of California. The mighty U.S.S. Nimitz aircraft carrier and its supporting ships included the U.S.S. Princeton, carrying the most sophisticated sensor systems in the world, repeatedly detected recurring glimpses of the tic-tac but were unable to lock on. On November 14th, F-18s were ordered into the area and saw it up close. Veteran pilot Dave Fravor, commander of the elite Black Aces unit, says the tic-tac reacted to the presence of the F-18s, then took off like a bullet fired from a gun. It takes off like nothing I've ever seen. 1 minute is here and off, and then off it goes. It's gone, said retired Navy pilot David Fravor. An explosion of media interest following the Pentagon's release of the tic-tac video, along with the recordings of the two other encounters, Commander Fravor expressed the opinion that the technology was far more advanced than anything we've known on Earth. But in the months since the release, Pentagon has clammed up. It has declined to release official documentation about the Nimitz tic-tac encounter or similar incidents. There are many Nimitz incidences that are equally compelling, that are told from the eyes of the people like Commander Dave Fravor, Luis Elizondo, former Pentagon intelligence officer. Until last year, Elizondo ran the AATIP, a secret Pentagon assignment that quietly evaluated UFO reports. He chafes at the armchair experts who claim the tic-tac was a balloon or a bird, a mistake made by pilots, or a technical glitch. Let the data speak for itself, he said. Let the information we receive from the electro-optical data, electromechanical mechanisms be the tools for which we look and compare what the eyewitness testimony is saying. Elizondo is not authorized to release such information, but the I-Team obtained some of it anyway. Earlier this year, we made a whirlwind trip to Washington for a debrief arranged by Senator Harry Reid. While in D.C., the I-Team obtained copies of the unclassified documents obtained by the UFO encounters, included the tic-tac. The analysis was compiled in 2009 with the input from multiple agencies. It confirms that the Nimitz group had several interactions with the AAV, anomalous aerial vehicles. God damn it, call it a UFO! Stop trying to change the name. I understand why they're doing it, but Jesus Christ. The report lists the advanced sensors involved at the time. The ANSPY, capable of tracking a golf ball at 100 miles. The E-2C Hawkeye airborne early warning aircraft, as well as the shipboard radars and sensors on multiple F-18s, which interacted with the tic-tac and with something else. Pilots reported a large disturbance just under the surface of the ocean, round the 100 yards across. It appeared as if the tic-tac was rendezvousing with an underwater object. Among the key findings in this report, the AAV is not something that belongs to the United States or another nation. It was so advanced it renders U.S. capabilities ineffective. It showed velocities far greater than anything that known to exist, and it could turn itself invisible both to radar and the human eye. Essentially, it was undetectable and unchallenged. Think about that shit. In a military report, they're reading in the report saying, A, we couldn't see it when it didn't want us to see it. It was undetectable by radar, meaning if it didn't want to be seen, it didn't necessarily have to be seen. And beyond that, it seemed to be rendezvousing with something that was under the ocean. That is amazing. That is a mind-blowing report. Like, so it makes you think of what the hell is in the report that's supposed to be top secret. This is fucking amazing. Let's keep going. The report included statements from 7 F-18 pilots as well as radar operators on the ship. Despite the seriousness of the encounter, the pilots faced ridicule after the encounters. The Navy initial report was buried, not forwarded to command. It was decided that the AAV was not a threat. That's not the point. That's not the point. I'm glad it wasn't a threat. I didn't think it was, but that's not the point. 5 years later, a more comprehensive assessment was compiled, but was never made public and has been seen by very few, even inside the Pentagon. Former intelligence official Chris Mellon opined in the Washington Post that the Pentagon's unwillingness to discuss these encounters or share information with other military branches is a threat to national security, comparable with the CIA and the FBI failed to share information prior to 9/11. The analysis report is not dated, has no logo, but 4 separate people who are familiar with this contents confirmed to the I-team that it's real deal and was written as part of a Pentagon's program. Another highly classified version was also written, but is unlikely to ever be released. This is the part that's important. They found multiple people, including 7 F pilots, meaning this is not a situation, again, a farmer in the middle of Oklahoma or Idaho that says there was a craft that came and grabbed me by my ass. No, this was a bunch of people who were in the military, multiple pilots looking at this thing and observing strange and weird phenomena, including the ability for this thing to go invisible and be completely unseen by our sensors. I don't think this is a threat. If it was a threat, it looked like it would have been an issue by now. But the part that terrifies me is not the AAV, whatever they're calling it right now. At one point, it was a UF, unidentified aerial phenomena. Now it's an AAV. At one point, it was a UFO. They keep changing the name. They change the name because they don't want the giggle factor associated with the topic. So they try to give it a different name, a different moniker to make it look like something else. It's the same thing. You're talking about the same phenomena. They just lied about it for all these years. And at this very specific point, the part that concerns me is the end. Right here. I read this entire report thinking, that's interesting, that's fascinating, that's fucking amazing. And then they get to this part, the analysis of the report is not dated, no logo, not right here. Former intelligence official, essentially former spook Chris Mellon, opined in the Washington Post that the Pentagon's unwillingness to discuss these encounters or share information, a national security threat comparable with the CIA and the FBI failed to show information on 9/11. They are literally comparing them not sharing this with what was similar to the military failure or the intelligence failure associated with 9/11. That is amazing. My concern here is if this is put under the threat of 9/11, meaning we need to do something because this is a threat, it sounds like somebody has made the determination whether this is real or whether this is not. There is some determination here that says we are going to shoehorn this into the public light and we're going to shoehorn this information out. We're going to get this out for the public to see it. We're going to do it by hook or by crook, even if we have to use this thing of national security. We're at threat. We're at risk. Something is invading our airspace. We can't see it. We can't detect it. Something is out there. Something is invading our oceans. We need to do something about this. Essentially, when all else fails, get hysterical about national security. So I'm going to leave this at the bottom for you guys to see. This report is amazing. The larger report is also there. Mersey Dizzy, Security Team Thomas, that's funny. Jamal Cho or Coast to Coast, Carl M. I've followed stuff like this for the entirety of the show. I have maybe 2% of the time on this show is following topics that come up. When this popped into the UFO, into the New York Times, Washington Post, it was fair game. It was fair game. And by the way, people can make the case that these guys are lying and these guys are making this up and everything else. That would be an amazing thing to make up. One or two things is true. Or one or three things. Either they're lying about it, meaning they're using this for some other reason. They're creating a groundwork for something else, using this as this kind of pretext in order to do it. Either they're telling the truth about it, meaning they're coming clean saying, look, here's the information that we have at our disposal and this is what we have so far. Problem is, the Pentagon has already backtracked on the information, clamming up about it, even though the information came from the Pentagon. Or it's some combination of both. Meaning part of this is a lie, part of this is truthful, and that's probably the most terrifying aspect of this because we have no idea which part is true, which part they're making it up. Either way, it seems like somebody has made a choice that we want to get this information out, and they are pushing to get it out. Thing is, Tom DeLonge has already said that they have reports, this is probably one of them, and they have materials. The report in and of itself is amazing because you have multiple military professionals who are involved in the process. In order to discredit it, you have to discredit each and every one of those military officials who are involved in it, and then you have to ask, why would each and every one of these people lie about this particular event? But like I said, be skeptical. It could be some combination of both, which is probably the most terrifying aspect because at that point, they're doing it for a reason. Then it becomes, what is the reason that they're using for this? And it's possible that I'm overly cynical because I analyze politics all the time. That's fair. For something like this, maybe you should be. Maybe you should be. The military has lied about this subject going for God knows how long. And then all of a sudden, they're supposed to be like, all right, here we are. Here we are. And when you look at the Clinton Foundation, and by the way, the Clinton emails is intimately connected to this. Tom DeLonge, they thought Tom DeLonge was full of it. When the Clinton leaks came out, you could see all of these connections that Tom DeLonge had with all of these spooks in intelligence systems and intelligence services, which gave Tom DeLonge a certain amount of credibility. But it aided the second question of, well, wait a minute, Tom DeLonge has all of these spooks. Why all of a sudden these guys coming out with their hands up saying this is what happened? Either way, this is the story, the overt narrative of this. Let's say it this way. The overt narrative, meaning the narrative that's mainstream at this point, is that the military was engaged with some kind of UFO, and that particular UFO was essentially surveilled, watched. This went on for like a week. You had multiple pilots who were involved in the process. Those pilots have come out saying, yes, we're involved with this process. The military gets their hand on this report and buries this report because they don't want to deal with the reality of what's taking place. Either way, whether they want to deal with the reality of it or not, the overt story, and I say overt because there tends to be two narratives that take place: the reality of it versus what's perceived as reality from the mainstream standpoint. At this point, this is mainstream. So whatever doubts, whatever issues you have with it, whatever the giggle factor, whatever else, this is now mainstream. The fact that the Washington Post, the New York Times, MSNBC, all of these guys, all of these mainstream articles, and I-Team, Las Vegas, coming out with the report itself, written by the military itself. It's awesome. It's awesome. Terrifying in one respect, but awesome. And by the way, the terror in this is not from whatever it is. The terror in this is from the human reaction to this. So, I'm not going to keep this one long. I'm pro-UFO. Also, Harlan St. Clair. Yeah, I'm pro-UFO. Ex-Canadian Defense Minister is a big believer. Mr. Mrizzy Dizzy. Yeah, he is. I know what you're talking about. I can't think of his name. Cenk Uygur joked him. And then Cenk Uygur comes out, does a story on UFOs once the story released. It's like, you look like an asshole. You're joking the guy. You don't know what the fuck you're talking about. That guy was literally in government, literally in the place where he would know about this stuff, or at the very least come in contact with it in some way. The idea that somebody's saying, oh, that guy's making it up, is insane. Why would he do it? Why would he do it? Exactly. It doesn't matter if the narrative being pushed is accurate or not. What matters much more is the reality that is being confirmed. Yes. It is semi-official. Yes, agreed. Agreed. That's kind of my point. This is like this kind of two-step that the Pentagon is doing, releasing this information, but saying, oh, we released it, but we didn't kind of release it. Here's a report, but we're not supposed to give this report out. Whether they're supposed to give the report or not, this is the report. These are the military officials who are involved in it. These were the pilots who were involved in it. This was the shit that was involved in it. You're getting person, people, dates, times, everything else. All the skeptics would typically say, yeah, man, but we can't cooperate. What's taking place? Well, now you can cooperate all this stuff. All of these people. It's mainstream. Now, if you have issue with what's being said on this, I would say you challenge your own perception of these things, because at this point, this is now the mainstream narrative of what's taking place. So, I will leave this here with a pin in it. I like stories like this, even though stories like this somewhat terrify me, because I don't necessarily know the human reaction to stories like this. We're ensconced in lies. And so it's like when you're awash in lies, how do you necessarily know what's being true, especially on a scale when they're adding in fucking aliens? It's amazing. So, Ryan for Prez, still waiting for full disclosure on JFK, MLK, RFK, not holding my breath for UFO disclosure. Fair enough. Won't ever get full disclosure. Confirmation is here, however. The end, boy. Yeah, this is confirmation. This is literally confirmation. Like, I don't know how else you can come in and look at this and say this is not confirmation. This is literally the mainstream narrative now being the U.S. military was studying these things. You have all of these pilots and everything looking at these things, and they're excluding the fact that there could be U.S. or foreign sources. This is confirmation. So, I will leave this here. This is awesome. I'll stick a pin in it. Terrified at the human response, and slightly terrified at the way that they're using this, meaning this kind of national security thing, and it's a threat and we need to do something about it, because I don't know what that means. What do you mean you need to do something about it? Does that mean you need to invest more in military technology? You need to invest more in surveillance technology? What are you saying from the standpoint of a threat? Are you just talking about openly talking about it, but are you going to openly talk about it without doing anything about it? This is kind of what I'm getting at. What is the point? What is your goal? What is the thing? Is it just to reveal this information But if you're revealing the information within the context of a threat to national security, what do you think politicians are going to be incentivized to do if you're telling them it's a threat to national security? I mean, this is my only qualm with the way this is coming up. That's all. All right, guys, I'll end it here. If you guys enjoy the content, please feel free to share, like, subscribe, and of course, you guys can always support the Patreon. Thanks, guys. And